Complete Research Guide for Beginners. This guide is intended to help college students organize and write a quality research dissertation or thesis or paper for classes taught in the social and behavioral sciences. General structure and writing style. The function of a research design is to ensure that the evidence obtained enables you to effectively address the research problem logically and as unambiguously as possible. The length, complexity, and research designs can vary considerably. Identify the research problem clearly and justify its selection, particularly about any valid alternative designs that could have been used. Review and synthesize previously published literature associated with the research problem. Clearly and explicitly specify hypotheses, i.e., research questions, central to the problem. Effectively describe the information and/or data that will be necessary for adequate testing of the hypotheses and explain how such information and/or data will be obtained, and describe the methods of analysis to be applied to the data in determining whether or not the hypotheses are true or false. Types of research design. Action research design. The essentials of action research design follow a characteristic cycle whereby initially an exploratory stance is adopted, where an understanding of a problem is developed and plans are made for some form of intervening strategy. Case study design. A case study is an in-depth study of a particular research problem rather than a sweeping statistical survey or comprehensive comparative inquiry. The case study research design is also useful for testing whether a specific theory and model applies to phenomena in the real world. It is a useful design when not much is known about an issue or phenomenon. Causal design. Causality studies may be thought of as understanding a phenomenon in terms of conditional statements in the form, if X, then Y. This type of research is used to measure what impact a specific change will have on existing norms and assumptions. Most social scientists seek causal explanations that reflect tests of hypotheses. The causal effect, nomothetic perspective, occurs when variation in one phenomenon, an independent variable, leads to or results, on average, in variation in another phenomenon, the dependent variable. Conditions necessary for determining causality. Empirical association. A valid conclusion is based on finding an association between the independent variable and the dependent variable. Appropriate time order. To conclude that causation was involved, one must see that cases were exposed to variation in the independent variable before variation in the dependent variable. Non-spuriousness, a relationship between two variables that is not due to variation in a third variable. Cohort design. Often used in the medical sciences, but also found in the applied social sciences, a cohort study generally refers to a study conducted over a period involving members of a population which the subject or representative member comes from, and who are united by some commonality or similarity. Using a quantitative framework, a cohort study makes note of statistical occurrence within a specialized subgroup, united by the same or similar characteristics that are relevant to the research problem being investigated, rather than studying statistical occurrence within the general population. Using a qualitative framework, cohort studies generally gather data using methods of observation. Cohorts can be either open or closed. Cross-sectional design. The cross-sectional design can only measure differences between or from among a variety of people, subjects, or phenomena rather than a process of change. As such, researchers using this design can only employ a relatively passive approach to making causal inferences based on findings. Descriptive design. Descriptive research designs help provide answers to the questions of who, what, when, where, and how associated with a particular research problem. A descriptive study cannot conclusively ascertain answers to why. Descriptive research is used to obtain information concerning the current status of the phenomena and to describe what exists concerning variables or conditions in a situation. Experimental design. A blueprint of the procedure that enables the researcher to maintain control over all factors that may affect the result of an experiment in a causal relationship. A cause will always lead to the same effect, and the magnitude of the correlation is great. Subsequent experimental designs have used more groups and more measurements over longer periods. True experiments must have control, randomization, and manipulation. Exploratory design. An exploratory design is conducted about a research problem when there are few or no earlier studies to refer to or rely upon to predict an outcome. The focus is on gaining insights and familiarity for later investigation or undertaken when research problems are in a preliminary stage of the investigation. Exploratory designs are often used to establish an understanding of how best to proceed in studying an issue or what methodology would effectively apply to gathering information about the issue. Field research design. Sometimes referred to as ethnography or participant observation, designs around field research encompass a variety of interpretative procedures, e.g., observation and interviews, rooted in qualitative approaches to studying people individually or in groups while inhabiting their natural environment, as opposed to using survey instruments or other forms of impersonal methods of data gathering in the form of field notes, that involves documenting what the researcher sees and hears while in the field. Conclusions, therefore, are developed from an interpretation of findings that reveal overriding themes, concepts, and ideas. Historical design. The purpose of a historical research design is to collect, verify, and synthesize evidence from the past to establish facts that defend or refute a hypothesis, using secondary sources and a variety of primary documentary evidence, such as diaries, official records, reports, archives, and non-textual information, maps, pictures, audio, and visual recordings.